From Buffalo Wild Wings in Moorhead, welcome to Benchwarmers. Today's featured guests are sports reporter for the Fargo Forum, Eric Peterson, Midco Sports Network basketball analyst Greg Stemen, Minnesota State Moorhead head men's basketball coach Chad Walthall, and our host, Midco Sports Network's Tom Nieman.
Hello, welcome to Benchwarmers. Another panel of brilliance has assembled here in Buffalo Wild Wings in Moorhead, Minnesota. We're right here on the borderline between Minnesota and North Dakota, the Fargo-Moorhead Metroplex. And just, Eric, start with that. Is it a big melting pot up here? Do Fargo people like what's going on in Moorhead and the other way around, or do they stay to themselves as far as sports fans go?
I think they somewhat stay to themselves, but I think the thing is winning brings them out. Minnesota State Moorhead had a very successful men's basketball season last year. I'd see Concordia fans and NDSU Bison fans come over. I mean, of course, with the NDSU football success, people Fargo, Moorhead, and, outliers of the region would show up there. So I think if you have a good product that people want to watch, I think you're going to get, crossover from across the river.
Yeah. Been a lot of lifetime NDSU football fans like you. Was that your point you were making?
I don't know if that's what I am. I respect what they've done, and I think that's the other thing is I think fans up in this part of the country are pretty knowledgeable, and they do respect and success and when things are going well, and when they are, I think they want to make an effort to get out and observe that and see what all the talk is about. And so I think from the river standpoint, I think that's irrelevant at times. When a program's successful, I think it generates interest.
Did you get some of that Fargo feel from the season that you guys just had?
Certainly did, and I think Eric makes a great point. I mean, when you have some success, people want to check it out, and they don't necessarily have to be huge Dragon fans, but if you have a product out there and they enjoy watching good basketball and they get familiar with the players, I think that's going to bring some fans in, and maybe they start getting attached, and that's how you kind of build a culture of a fan base.
If they didn't like what you guys did last year, then I don't know when they're ever going to like it. 35 wins last year for Coach Walthall's Dragon team, all the way to the Elite Eight in Division II. Lost to the team that finally lost to the eventual national champion of Florida Southern, but you kind of just find yourself sitting around smiling, thinking about last year a little bit every once in a while?
I don't think coaches are built that way.
No?
I think probably about a couple weeks after, you appreciate what was done. But, coaches, for the most part, are always looking at that next thing and always preparing to either recruit a certain position or how you're going to, get your team to be there again, or some of the problems or issues that you might have position-wise. How do you fix that? Bellarmine beats us, so how do you fix a team and get a team together that can beat a team like Bellarmine? The first thing I thought of was teams that give us really a lot of trouble were Augustana twice, Bellarmine, and Minnesota Duluth. Our 4 losses were all kind of big across the board. So as a coach, you're saying, okay, how do we fix those things that got us beat? And it's just how you think.
You're focused on the 4 losses, not the 35 wins.
That's the way it is.
All right, Stemen tried to soak the life out of every win that he had, so I don't know.
Well, not that many that I had. Go ahead.
So where's the enjoyment? When do you get to enjoy it?
For that 2 weeks? That was it?
I think for me, it's just when you watch the players and the fans' faces, after our regional final, that's when I really took a step back and enjoyed probably the 2 or 3 hours after that, just watching our players, watching their parents, watching our fans, our president, our administration, I embrace that moment because so many people deserve that, and they've been waiting a long time for it, and I was glad just to be a part of something like that and have a piece into it. But that was probably the biggest thing for me is after that regional, and then a few times in the locker room with our players. Those are the moments that I think I really appreciated.
Say if your program is able to get back there again, will it be the same as this first one? Is the first one always going to be a little different than maybe anything that happens after that?
Probably. I think the first time in anything, is probably a little bit different, but that's good and bad. I mean, if you get back there again, at least as a coach and maybe as a program, you're a little more familiar with things. Everything we did this year was so new to everybody, and so you're kind of as a coach and as a department kind of learning on the run here. We were in the NCAA tournament a couple years ago, but it was a little bit different this year from the standpoint as the regional was hosted in Sioux Falls, which is obviously a Northern Sun town, and then we're obviously really close there. And then obviously when you advance to the Elite Eight, that was all new too. So, but it was a great experience. We sure would love to get back, but it's really, really hard. So as a coach, you know that.
That is a really good rivalry right now, isn't it, between you guys and Augustana?
Well, I don't know. They pretty much dominated us last year, so I don't know if it is a rival. But we certainly had 2 very good seasons. We were fortunate enough to win the regional. I don't know if we would have liked to play at Augustana, but we were sure fortunate to win the regional. They had a great conference season, won our conference tournament championship. Tom Billiter and his guys do a great job, and they're going to be really, really good next year. So. If we're in the conversation with them, I'll take that any day.
One of your guys, Jordan Reaver, one of your guys that's moving on, along with Williams and Bingham, a couple of those guys. Jordan Reaver's going to go play professionally in Germany. And this is a kid he's from your hometown, Staples, Minnesota, I believe. Just a little guy, about 6'1", but did all the little things right. He was in the top of the nation in free throw shooting, assist to turnover. He was outstanding. I know you're a curmudgeon and a conservative, but you agree with me on this, that you got to do all those little things right as a basketball player. That's what makes you good and what makes programs good, right?
Well, without question, that's what I give Chad so much credit for. Chad hasn't relied on a ton of transfer plays. I think one of the neat things he's done is he's developed his guys. Jordan Reaver is a perfect example of how much he's improved throughout the course of his career. But not only him, a number of other players, the Sevely kids that probably, and this is what I give you credit for, I doubt there were times where you were worried about when you were recruiting who else was recruiting, because you saw guys that fit your system and fit what you thought they could become, and that's what I think is really neat. And that's a part of building a culture, and that's what's going to keep fans coming back, is that type of player development, the way they've done it. And so that's where I give Chad so much credit.
All right. Well, it's so important from that standpoint, because what I have found over the years, and certainly I've made my share of mistakes as you try to figure this coaching program thing out. But I do think that when you get players that are 4-year, 5-year program-based guys, and there's a place for transfers. Certainly, we've sprinkled some in our 5 years here. But I think always, if you're talking about program and not being just a one season to one season type of deal, and you've got, I'm spoiled, I'm selfish. I want to get to know my guys, and I want them around for 4 or 5 years. I want to coach them up for 4 or 5 years. And sometimes if you have a 1-year transfer, a 2-year transfer, you just don't get the investment of time together as much. And so I enjoy that process of recruiting a 17, 18-year-old and watching them develop and mature as a man and as a player. And that's a lot of fun for a coach to do.
And on that note, a couple guys from around here, Tanner Kretschmann from Fargo, Aaron Lean from right here in Moorhead, guys that you've been able to build on, a couple of young guys that are coming back.
Absolutely. Aaron Lean, a Final Five Mr. Basketball candidate out of Minnesota. Tanner Kretschmann, obviously Mr. Basketball a year ago in North Dakota. Aaron was a second-team all-conference player this past season as a sophomore. He's going to be, I would think, one of the best players in the league the next couple of years. And Tanner Kretschmann reminds me a lot of Jordan Reaver when Jordan was a freshman. Jordan had the good fortune to be able to redshirt a year. Tanner didn't, but Tanner was more than ready as a freshman to play. But Tanner, you talk about a guy that's coming in. He's Mr. Basketball. He has all these accolades, and I'll tell you, he was like a puppy dog, just following Jordan all around. And Jordan was a great leader for him on how he approaches the game and how he puts his time in. And that's what it's all about. A young guy looking at an older guy and how to go about his business.
And you got that culture. You hear culture a lot, but it is very important. All right. We got a couple of coaches up here. When we come back, we're going to find out how much influence these guys really have. We're going to talk about at all levels of basketball, from pro down to high school. Who has the most influence on winning basketball games? We'll do that when we come back.
Benchwarmers on Midco Sports Network is presented by Buffalo Wild Wings.
Welcome back to Buffalo Wild Wings. This is Benchwarmers from Moorhead, Minnesota. And a little bit of coaching news coming out earlier this week. Bo Ryan saying that he's going to leave Wisconsin after one more season there. And then in the Northern Sun Conference, Mike Leaf is leaving Winona State after 17 years, though. You know Mike a little bit. You surprised by this move at all?
Not overly. I think Mike put a lot of effort into it, a lot of time, and Chad knows this well. Mike set a standard that everybody else in the Northern Sun's still trying to achieve, is that national championship, and not just once. Put some really, really special teams together, but at the end of the day, he invested a lot of time and a lot of effort into that team, many years as an assistant, many successful years as a head coach, and just made the decision to walk away. So credit to him, and he set a very high standard.
All right, another big coaching name that is well known around here, Dave Yeager, head coach of the Memphis Grizzlies from your hometown of Staples, Minnesota. You guys are bringing him in for a camp or a clinic sometime in September, right?
Yeah, we're going to have him on our campus on Saturday. It's going to be a kind of a basketball smorgasbord, and he's going to just kind of give a one-day clinic. He might have another speaker, but it's going to be the Dave Yeager Show and the Memphis Grizzlies, and we're really excited to have him back. And MSU-M is his alma mater.
He played 1 year at
played
Moorhead.
2 years there,
at Moorhead,
2 years, and graduated from there. And he's a really Dragon alum. He was well aware of our success, and he was following us around, which was amazing because he's so involved in his own season. But and he's got obviously a lot of family here, so he's looking forward to getting back.
All right. On that note, we're talking about basketball, coaching in the NBA, in college, and in high school. Eric, at those three levels, what coach has the most impact on winning games? Not just on individuals and the social part of it, but on winning games at those three levels. Who has the most impact?
I guess I'd have to say college, and I discussed this a little bit off camera, just because you pick the players, and I feel like you can mold them. In the NBA, when you have a guy like LeBron James who's making $20 million a year and you tell him to do something, he doesn't want to do it, I just don't know what authority you have as a coach. I think you're more of a manager of egos or personalities, or getting some guy who's ultra talented to buy into a role of, maybe playing defense and rebounding, maybe when that guy wants to be just purely a scorer. In high school, you kind of left with the guys you have, maybe a little more influence if you can put together a program at the lower levels so the talent feeding into you is a little better. But I would just say overall college, because you pick the players and you kind of mold them into your system.
What do you think?
I agree with Eric. I think, I don't know if it's the most impact, but I think you have the most control over your situation at the college level between recruiting and putting your staff together. And like, I would echo some of the same points that Eric made at the professional level. That's where I give Dave a lot of credit. He's got a strong personality, but boy, when your star makes 16 times more than what you do, it's kind of like, am I going to listen to you or not? The neat thing about it is when you watch his teams play, he commands their respect, and that's a pretty special thing to have. And I think you have to have that in order to be successful at the professional level.
At the college level, do you feel like you have the control that these guys are talking about?
Big part of that job is recruiting, and so you do have control of who's in your program to some degree. I mean, kids can say no to your program too. So, but you do as a coach have control. Now, I'll say this: impactfulness at the high school level can be pretty substantial,
right.
Because you're dealing with just younger kids, and sometimes it can be a little bit more meaningful at that age. As you're learning. As your brain's developing, you're just younger. And so I think sometimes at the high school level, you can have maybe even a greater impact. But wins and losses, because, again, you control your team and you can control the players that are coming in. I mean, at high school level, you have what you have, at least for the most part. Some of those high schools are getting into the recruiting part of it too, but for the most part, you have who you have. And so you're limited from that standpoint. And then the NBA is a whole different beast.
All right, and at the college level, like you said, you can impact wins and losses, but you love the part of it where you're impacting the kids personally as well. That has got to be rewarding and a huge part of what you're doing.
Well, I mean, that's half of it, I mean, we all love to win. We all hate to lose, players and coaches alike, but you're going through a lot of things during the season. You're going through adversity, and it's always not going to be peaches. There's going to be some tough times, and so you kind of learn and grow and take on some things that you're going to take on in life, and so you're going to learn and grow as a person.
And it's tough when you win 35 games and you forget about that. You got to start winning again.
Yeah, you're only as good as your last
right?
game, right? And that's the way coaches think of. And it's so much harder to stay good than it is to get good.
Yes.
And that's the thing that I admire about those programs with that consistent success. And you're right, it'll be a challenge.
Yeah, I remember the 4 losses a little bit more than the 35.
I believe you.
So Dragons fans can expect 36 wins next season, right? You always got to keep on getting better, right?
Yeah, no
Is
problem.
that the standard?
Sure, no problem.
All right,
Throw
Eric,
it out there, Eric.
Thanks
a lot.
Talk about football at Minnesota State Moorhead a little bit, trying to build a culture of winning there, and Steve Lockway's trying to get that done. But They've got some work going on their football field. They've made improvements at the basketball arena. Football field's got some improvements going on as well, don't they?
Yeah, got $1 million donation from Shields, a regional sporting goods place that I'm sure many people have heard of. But right now they're tearing up the grass, and I think it's mostly level dirt. But mid-July, I believe they're going to install it, and then they're putting it also in a lighting system to give them, a chance to play night games. They're going to open up at night next fall against Winona State. I mean, it's just how you have to do business these days.
Yeah,
there's high schools that have field turf already. If it's raining out, you need a surface to practice on. I just think you almost need it. It's kind of seems like athletes are spoiled to say this, but it's almost a needed luxury. I don't know if it's not even a luxury anymore. It's a needed tool now these days to recruit to a football program.
Exactly. Uniforms and everything else. They all want swag, man. And, and you got to give it to them to be successful. But just to follow up on football, Moorhead's trying to get up there. They won 4 games last year. Mankato, Duluth, Sioux Falls going to be the usual suspects at the top of the Northern Sun again this year?
Yeah, those are the 3 marquee teams. I think for MSU-M, I think it might be a little unrealistic to get to the level of those 3 teams next year, but I think beyond that, I feel like they think they're getting where they can compete with the other teams in that conference, and maybe the next step is to get above 500. 2 years in a row winning 4. I think they'd love to get to that 6-5 mark and make that next step. All right, we're above 500 team, and like Chad knows, that's not always easy to get those wins to go from pretty good to like good and really good is probably the harder steps to take in a program.
Yeah, it's taking you 5 years to get to 30 minutes.
Well, and then football, and Coach Lockway, it's so impressive watching him and his staff do their work. They're very consistent in their approach. You just never see him too high or too low. I'd be in a sane asylum by now, but that's why I'm a basketball coach, because it's just, when you're talking about that many numbers, it's going to take longer, and it's a numbers game in football, and it's also, you're just not going to have freshmen that help you a whole lot in football. Basketball, it's a little bit easier because you just have to get so much bigger and stronger in football, and so it's just going to take some time. But you can tell that the players that they have coming in and that have been in the program for a couple of years, just the look of a team is so much different than it was 3-4 years ago.
Football opener's coming up September 3rd. It's not that far away.
Well, back to this point, I think 3 or 4 years ago, you'd walk by guys who are offensive linemen and not know they're offensive linemen. Now you see them, they're like 6'3", 6'4",
they look the part.
280 to 300 range. So just like you said, just signs like that, you can tell the program has progressed where it was 3 or 4 years ago.
All right. We're going to get back to basketball when we come back. Did the Minnesota Timberwolves finally get it right? There's some excitement now that the Towns is in town along with Wiggins. Did the Wolves get it right? We'll talk about that when we come back.
Benchwarmers on Midco Sports Network is presented by Buffalo Wild Wings.
Welcome back to Benchwarmers. We are in Moorhead, Minnesota at Buffalo Wild Wings. The Minnesota Timberwolves, I got to believe there's some Timberwolves fans around this country, but did they finally get it right in the NBA draft? They got the guy they wanted, I think, Karl Anthony Towns, to go along with Wiggins and some of the younger players. Did the Wolves finally get this right, Stemen?
Well, what they did, we won't know if they got it right until we see what happens, but what they did is they didn't dampen enthusiasm, which is typically what's happened with their drafts in past years.
There's no glaring disappointment this year.
Towns was kind of the consensus number 1 guy and versatile player, and to get Tyus Jones, I think everybody knew that Flip would maybe try to pull that trigger if he could. And the other thing that's maybe under the radar is they're going to bring, I don't know if it's Croatia or Serbia, the kid they've drafted in the last couple of years is MVP of the EuroLeague. Right. They were going to bring him over too. So they're moving in the right direction, building on what Wiggins and company were able to do last year.
I think it's Nemanja Bjelica. I do not know if I said that right, but that's the European guy.
That's amazing. I can't believe you just pulled that out. That's fantastic.
I think they drafted him in 2009, a second-round pick, and I just think this roster, everyone's talking about like the Celtics having these assets and all these other teams. Of the teams that aren't established, I would probably take the Wolves roster over most other rosters in the league because I think they have a chance to be really good. They may not get there, but with Karl Anthony Towns, Andrew Wiggins, you have 2 potential superstars. And as we saw this year in the NBA Finals, you need superstars. You can't have 12 role players and expect to get to the NBA Finals or do anything. So I think they're on the right track, but you got 19 and 20-year-old kids. I mean, maybe they should get Walthall in there to develop. You know how to develop players, right?
I would have.
Get you on staff?
We'd be in trouble. We'd be in a lot of trouble.
Well, like you said, they didn't damper expectations, and I think they've got a good young roster. They've got a a decent amount of veterans mixed in with like a Kevin Garnett, a Kevin Martin to at least provide a little bit of guidance.
Garnett averaged about 6.6 rebounds a game last year. Is he still valuable to an NBA team, Kevin Garnett?
I would certainly think so. I mean, a guy that's been there, done that before. I mean, even though statistically and minute-wise, he obviously is not going to do what he once did. But my goodness, the veteran leadership that he can provide, and I mean, I've seen a couple Timberwolves practices years ago before he left the Wolves, and his competitive spirit and intensity in practice is off the chart, and I'm certain that he's still bringing that.
All right.
So he'll teach these young guys how to go about their business.
There is value beyond his numbers on
I
the
would
floor.
think so.
All right.
I would think so. The only thing is if he doesn't become too much of an intimidating factor where these guys are kind of afraid to be who they are. But it's like he's teaching them work ethic, how to like be a pro, the type of intensity you need to be a good player, and especially the guy like Karl Anthony Towns. They seem to be similar type players, 6'11", 7-foot players who can play on the perimeter, can run the floor. So they're almost carbon copies in the way they were as young players coming into the league.
All these positive thoughts about the Timberwolves. This is good, going in the right direction. There was some trade rumors earlier this week about trading Ricky Rubio, possibly. I don't think that would be a bad idea. They did get Tyus Jones in the draft in a roundabout way, but a kid from Minneapolis and who could play point guard. They think Zach LaVine could play point guard. Should they get rid of Rubio?
I wouldn't be in a hurry to do it because I don't trust LaVine. I think he's really talented. And Jones, I think, is going to be a really solid player. But if Rubio can stay healthy, I still think he can make them better because he's actually a pretty good defender as well.
Well, plus if you surround him with shooters, the problem is I don't think they've surrounded him with shooters. And his strength is distributing. Well, if he's throwing it to people who can't make baskets, his effectiveness goes down. Now you had a guy like Karl Anthony Towns who you can throw lobs to, a guy like Wiggins who can score on the wing, maybe add another shooter. I think his effectiveness of his offensive player goes up when that happens.
You need a point guard in the NBA right now? You have to have a true point. Is that?
I think you need a point guard no matter what level. And the thing about Rubio, and like Eric said, I mean, it's almost hard to evaluate Rubio the last few years because he's been hurt and out, and then again you surround a point guard that he's not a great shooter, so you need to surround his skill set, and he's a great passer and can do so many multiple things, but you got to surround him with some scorers and some shooters, and the Timberwolves haven't had that. So I don't know how to evaluate Rubio. That's a tough call, but he's sure fun to watch. But again, if you're not going to surround him with scorers and shooters, he's not going to do that himself. He's not a shooter-scorer. That's not his forte.
It would be cool if he is healthy and can play his role, and then Wiggins and Towns work out the way they're supposed to, and see if the Timberwolves can win 40 games this year. Maybe, possibly. We'll see. All right, when we come back, we will go into the crowd here at Buffalo Wild Wings for our Winging It question of the day.
Benchwarmers on Midco Sports Network is presented by Buffalo Wild Wings.
Welcome back. Time for our Winging It question from the lunchtime crowd here at Buffalo Wild Wings. Here's Austin Bramley.
Hey, Tom, I'm here with Chad, and he's got a question about golf for our panel today.
My question is for Eric. Who's going to have the hard edge and the laser focus to win the British Open?
All right, thanks a lot. Tom, back to you.
All right, thanks, Chad. This is kind of an inside question, but Big E, laser focus to win the British Open. What do you got?
I'm going Jordan Spieth. I can't go against that guy. I'm not a golf expert by trade, but I think he's really got a hard edge. He's galvanized right now. Jordan Spieth.
Would be awesome. We'll look at Rory McIlroy, but Jordan Spieth with the hard edge. All right, when we come back, our poll question of the week. What's the favorite sport here in the city of Moorhead, Minnesota? We got that when we return.
Benchwarmers on Midco Sports Network is presented by Buffalo Wild Wings.
Welcome back to Benchwarmers. Our poll question of the week: what's the most popular sport here in Moorhead, Minnesota? Hockey gets the nod with 43%, 14% for basketball. You surprised by that?
A lot of Spud hockey fans out there. I don't know. But, hey, there's no Moorhead college hockey team. So that's all.
Basketball rules right now.
I guess you need a bigger family to stuff the voting, right? Isn't that the 14%?
That's
you
right.
Invite your family in?
That's right.
All right, before we get out of here, Women's World Cup semis are this week. The final coming up on Sunday. Final four, who you got winning the whole thing, Stemen, soccer expert?
Germany, U.S., England, Japan, all automotive technologically superiority. The Bentley's made in England. I'm going with Germany.
See you next time on Benchwarmers.